morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day that you're watching this, welcome. So welcome to the Two Wise Birds. I've got Sue Boynton here and myself, Jane Lelean. So, Sue, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sue Boynton, I'm a dentist and I'm an independent dental legal consultant.
Fantastic. And I'm Jane Lelean, and I'm an international business coach and trainer. And I think the thing about Sue and I is that we're both dentists. We always forget to mention that we're like you. We've had wet fingers, damp fingers, so we know what it's like. So Sue, the world of dentistry over the last 14 weeks has been changing week by week. What do you notice has been going on that we can explore in a conversation this week?
Yeah, really good question. There's a world of changes happening out there and there's so many challenges for dental practices. And just when we think we've got it sorted out, you hear something else.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard it, there was something on the news last night, I think it was BBC Southwest, and it was a story about dentists and PPE, and you think, oh, this is good, getting the message out to the public about PPE, but effectively it was saying, do you know what, we think dentists are overcharging for PPE because nothing has changed. They're still using the same PPE as they were using before, but they're charging privately in private practices for it. That is so wrong a story.
Where do they get the evidence from?
Indeed. Well, they were interviewing a delivery driver who said, I'm just delivering the same PPE to the practices as I've always been delivering, therefore something must be going wrong.
Oh my goodness me. So he doesn't even know what's in the boxes.
Absolutely. And what we're doing with it and how much it costs.
Absolutely. So he has absolutely no idea that the PPE that we were ordering 14, 16, 18 weeks ago last year, that a box of masks could have been costing £2. He doesn't know that the invoice fee could be 20 quid.
Yeah, and that's on a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
So that's really interesting because you and I are both working with practices that we're saying get your message out to people, to your individual patients, to your wider patient base, and we think we've done really well. It's going to be an ongoing conversation so that everybody knows what's happening.
Absolutely.
And how do we do that? How do we address that challenge, Jane?
Well, I think that I have seen over the last few weeks that there are some dental practices that have been very good at communicating to the patients that PPE is going to be different, that patients are going to see something different. So we've seen some really good stuff about this is what it looks like, this is what I'm going to look like, this is how long it takes me to put the stuff on. And there's been some amazing stuff. But I think maybe, I know I keep saying that mantra that I keep drumming into everybody, that a problem can only be present in the absence of a truthful conversation. So I come back to that maybe we need to be bold and tell our patients the numbers and tell them the truth. Because PPE does vary in price. It's very different now. And the PPE that somebody's wearing for an AGP, there's a different level of investment compared to a non-AGP. And we've got to be honest, because that needs to be paid for. Whether it's an NHS practice or a private practice, the practice is still paying for it. The PPE is not being gifted to us.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good message because when you listen to some of the government messaging, it sounds as if it is being given to us by the government and delivered to practices. We know it isn't, but I think you might need to keep getting that message out there. And for those NHS practices that aren't charging, it's because they cannot charge. Their hands are tied. So they're in an even worse position. And when you add that to the fallow time for the surgery for AGPs, that is incredibly challenging. So for all of us in practice, I think we can be getting that message out, even via family and friends, to keep repeating the message to people.
Absolutely, and we've got to counteract what is being said on the BBC and tell patients the truth. And I know that practices are taking a different position on charging for PPE. Some practices are being really upfront with it and saying, this is the level of investment for this appointment. Other practices are saying there is no charge. But ultimately, we know that they will be, because it will be added to the fees somewhere along the line.
Mm.
But we live in a society where forever and a day we have been used to going and filling up our pumps in our cars at the petrol pumps and going, what's the price of petrol today? Some of us may drive round our local towns and find the cheapest petrol. But we're used to petrol prices changing. And I think that there is no reason why we cannot say to our patients, this is the PPE that I will be wearing for this procedure, and this week I will be asking you to pay this amount of money. Now, I don't know, it may be different next week.
Yeah. And I suppose it's when we buy the bulk buying of it as well. So I think it's really interesting when you say that about we accept petrol prices fluctuating, and we do, because we understand that oil prices fluctuate, and ever so often the duty on petrol fluctuates as well. So we're well used to that. So we could apply that messaging. And it's always helpful to use something that people understand already to link it into that message, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I like that idea of being upfront about it.
Okay, and I think this also gives everybody in the team, reception team, nursing team, as well as the clinicians, it gives them a hanger, a metaphor, an analogy that they can explain it to the patients to say, you're used to this happening, and this is what is happening within dentistry at the moment, because we're going through an unusual phase. We don't know how long it's going to last.
You know, that's a really key point, because that links with, because if I was a patient, then I'd be saying, so if the price of PPE goes down, or if you don't have to use all this extra PPE in future, will these supplemental prices go down or disappear? And the answer is absolutely yes, they will. Okay. And then, of course, you have to follow through with that.
Absolutely.
But it's that honest discussion with them. And there may be patients who say, I can defer my treatment until you don't need so much PPE, so I don't have to pay that supplement. That's okay, that's their choice.
Absolutely. And I think maybe, I mean, you're the Dento legal advisor, but maybe there is an element of informed consent, that part of discussing the investments that we ask our patients to make for treatment, that is part of the discussions, is that we do discuss investments, and maybe we need to be much more upfront and say, currently, for this procedure, this is how much it's going to be. However, if I do more of your treatment today, you will have to pay that one-off PPE fee only once. However, if you choose to spread that over a number of visits, you will pay that PPE fee at each visit.
You're spot on. That is part of the consent discussion now, and of course we're not used to having that discussion in that way because we haven't had to. So it's being agile and changing the way we discuss things so patients are fully informed. And what I always say, you've probably heard me say this before, is so there are no surprises.
Absolutely.
No surprises in relation to the treatment, no surprises in relation to the cost. Nobody's saying, oh, do you know what, Sue, if I'd known that at the beginning, I'd have made a different choice.
Absolutely. And going back to the communication,
yeah.
Whilst the BBC's putting videos out there, we can be doing that. We can be putting videos out there to say, this is what my masks cost in February. This is what my masks cost today. The PPE that we wore in February, this is the entire PPE, and that was the cost.
Yeah.
This is what it is today. Because let's face it, what the patients probably also don't realise, that our nursing team, they're using at least 2 sets of PPE for each appointment, because they're there nursing with that fallow time, taking it all off, and then they have to go back in with a clean set of PPE to clean down the surgery, before they come back with a clean set to treat the patient.
Do you know, that sounds to me like a good idea for a good video.
Yeah, well, so those people that are listening, I gift that to you, encourage you to, I invite you to make those videos and put them on your website, put them on your Instagram feeds or whatever, your social media, whatever you're using, just to tell the truth. The other thing about the truth about PPE...
To family and friends as well, get the message around in that sort of way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Hey, you know, family and friends and people can be really good advocates of the practice as well, repeating our messages going out. And the more times people hear the message, the more powerful it is.
Absolutely.
So let's get that out there.
Absolutely. The other thing that strikes me about PPE is that you've been to the hairdressers. I'd be interesting to discover what PPE your hairdresser was wearing. A friend of mine recently went to the hairdresser, and her hairdresser was wearing a gown, a mask, a visor. Did she add it to the cost of a hair appointment? Absolutely she did.
Yeah.
What was the experience for you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I was surprised. They were really well organised. So hand sanitising when you go in. The customer wears a mask. They were wearing visors, masks and gowns. Their prices had gone up in general because they couldn't have as many customers in the shop and as many clients in the shop as they normally would have because they're social distancing. That's absolutely fine. And there was a clear additional charge for PPE, which is absolutely fine. And I asked them about it. I said, so how are your clients accepting this? And she said, yes, everybody understands.
Okay, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
That I think that many times dentists, we're fearful about talking about numbers. And actually, the general public, our patients, the vast majority of them are experiencing this. They're getting their hair cut, they're paying extra. That's great.
Yeah. And it's that discussion that they're having up front with people before they come in. You know, to say this is what you'll see, and this is why the costs have gone up because we can't get as many people in, but I've still got to have the same staff here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's good.
The other thing about PPE that I think is really useful that the clinicians are truthful about is how difficult it is. I'm going to be upfront, I've not worn it. My first stint wearing the full PPE isn't scheduled until August. But my clients that are working are just telling me how exhausting it is. I've got many clients that started off with FFP3 masks and have just gone to hoods because they can't cope with it. And I think that that's something also that would be really useful to explain to the patients that yes, we've got fallow time, which at the moment is a requirement, but actually physically we can't see as many as people as we did. And we've got to be, I think that we need to give, or realise this is very much opinion, is permission to be gentle on ourselves and gentle on our colleagues, because we cannot function in the same way that we did not wearing the full PPE. And let's be truthful about it.
You're absolutely right. I've been hearing exactly the same thing as you have. It is absolutely exhausting physically and mentally as well. So difficult to try and see with your loops, with the visor, with things reflecting. And sometimes it's been the really hot weather as well, so the PPE is hot and then you're in an extra hot surgery. Yeah. It is absolutely exhausting. And it's okay to say so. We've always been tough as a dental profession before. How's it going? Oh, it's going absolutely fine. No, it isn't. I'm worn out. I'm worried about my staff. I'm worried about my patients. I'm worried about my business. And then I'm worried about stuff going wrong in the surgery when I'm exhausted with all this stuff on. This is incredible at the moment. And it's okay to say so and take a break.
Absolutely. And I'm presuming your role as a dental legal advisor, that's something you're really mindful of, is that mistakes happen when we're tired. And I know at the moment people are desperate to get back and make some effort to recoup that money that has been lost. but please can we do this safely?
I think that's absolutely right. And it's okay to take a break, because people think, wow, practices have opened up, we need to be running on the hamster wheel again to try and get everything done. I think that's a bit of a recipe for disaster. I think it's okay to give permission to say, do you know what, I'm going to have a week off. Because even if I haven't been seeing patients when we've been off, I've been thinking about my business, I've been planning, I've been looking after my team, or I am a team member and I've been worried about losing my job. You know, it's a really hard, challenging time. It's okay to take a week off or even a long weekend. Go for it.
Absolutely. And I think that is so important, to be honest. So I'm very aware that for principals, they may not have been doing lots of treatment since the end of March, but my goodness me, their mind has been completely occupied with how am I going to move forward. It's so stressful. And now they are going back on all that a few weeks back, all the SOP stuff, that planning. So mentally exhausting. And again, associates have been doing things differently. And don't get me wrong, I do know that people have been triaging and doing that AAA. So I'm not saying that they haven't been working. They absolutely have been working. But I think that for many people, they have been working phenomenally hard, filling their days with watching webinars and listening to podcasts. And something that I think that we have not recognizing is that it's physically more exhausting. I was listening to something on Radio 4 and they were talking about the effort that it takes to watch something on Zoom and listen to something on Zoom. It actually takes much greater brain capacity than meeting somebody face to face or listening to them even on a telephone. So if you've got to the end of the day of online triaging and feel exhausted, well, that's normal. That's to be expected because it is harder work than face-to-face. So here we are at the time when we're desperate to get back. We've been told we can open, and many of us are tired and just need to take a break.
You know, I think that's so right, and I think provided everyone is recognising that, explaining it to people, explaining it to other people in the team is okay, explaining it to patients is okay as well, because patients don't quite know what's going on. The other people we sometimes forget about is, of course, dental hygienists who've had an awful time while they've been off and are now coming back with all the hand instruments. Wow, how exhausting is that? You can do treatment with hand instruments, but we're so not used to doing it all the time. So we need to be looking after everybody in that way, and again, messaging it to patients. We cannot do as much as we did before. We will do what we can. And I love the message, everyone is doing the best they can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our hygienists have got to protect themselves against PTSD. Not PTSD, sorry, repetitive strain injury, RSI. And let's face it, that's why we've used ultrasonics, because it's solved a problem. So I've got a good sense of what I think the message is that goes through this conversation and probably all our conversations, Sue. But what do you think the essence of what we're conveying is?
You know, it's really interesting. Whenever we unpick these problems and we're picking up all the problems and helping people with hints and tips, it always boils down to communication in different ways. Communication in the team, amongst ourselves, communication with patients and the public. It's having that honest discussion. And when you don't know something, it's okay to say, we don't know that yet. And when we do, we'll spread the message.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, for me, what this message is. It's about those truthful conversations. Listen first. Seek first to understand, then be understood. And prioritising the time to have the conversations. And that is prioritising the time to make the videos to communicate with your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will do that in different ways, and that's absolutely fine. Nothing has to be perfect. We're always perfectionists as dentists and teams. With these issues of communication, just go for it.
Absolutely. And I think that we need to be reassured, or it's useful to be reassured. I shouldn't use the word need, but it's useful to be reassured looking at that BBC News, where there's some guy giving us a very, very important briefing in the news. I think he was a diplomat, and in walks his toddler. Yeah, do you know what? We are human, and if you stumble over your words or it's not perfect, that's fine. We're human.
And I think being human helps to get the message over. There's been so many examples of that recently, as you say, with kids coming into videos, people walking in the background. Here there's a cement mixer going in the background at the moment, I think. People understand that life goes on. So yeah, good communication in different ways, but think about these different issues. So every time we're picking up issues, talking to people, we're sharing them on these two wise words, so people can learn from what other people have done as well. Take the good and take things that haven't worked so well as well. I love sharing those messages for things that haven't worked so well, so people can learn from that and not repeat the same issues. Really
Fantastic,
important.
absolutely. So I invite anybody that's watching these, share these videos, share this wisdom, share your feedback, put the good, the bad and the ugly in the comments boxes. Message us privately, and if there's something you would like us to address, we're very happy to address it. But
Absolutely.
Just get it out there. Communicate, communicate, communicate. And we'll pay attention to what goes on in the next 7 days. And we'll be back again in a week or so to share with you our insights, understanding, and probably another bunch of stuff that it would be useful that you communicated about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is helpful.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.